Okay, we might have just solved the Bermuda Triangle. You know, countless planes, boats, and people disappearing into thin air in that area of the Atlantic that's just an urban myth. The world's biggest mystery finally has an answer, and there's a reason the US Navy intentionally avoids it. Warning, Philip is a professional mind blower. The topics discussed are not for the closed-minded. As retired Navy admirals, among other government officials, have confirmed that UFOs can travel through water just as easily as they pass through air. USOs, unidentified submerged objects, are our most recent addition to the tinfoil hat told you so checklist. And now that we look back with this in mind, reports from our past tell us we've been seeing them for centuries. As far back as 1492, in the personal journal of Christopher Columbus was an entry about a glimmering light he saw moving in the water below as he sailed the ocean. Just a day or two later, he hits land, which means that entry was written when he and his crew were right in the Bermuda Triangle. In 1644, the mayor of Boston is reported to have seen two bright lights come out of the water just off the east coast. 1873, the Adelheid ship reported to have sailed over a massive circular object in the South China Sea that lit up the ocean for over an hour. Something they said looked like a Ferris wheel, which kicked off a series of reports of the same object over the next few decades. In 1879, the HMS Vulture saw a large Ferris wheel spinning in the ocean with spokes that were 7.5 meters wide and spaced 30 meters apart. 1880, commander of the SS Shah Jahan described a massive Ferris wheel under a perfectly calm sea near India's Malabar coast. 1901, Persian Gulf, captain of the SS Kilwa saw lights emitting from the same underwater Ferris wheel revolving at a speed of around 100 kilometers an hour. 1907 and 1909, crews of the SS Delta and SS Bintang again saw glowing spinning wheels about 275 meters in diameter beneath the water in the Straits of Malacca. The Danish Meteorological Institute reported a massive rotating wheel with lights back in the South China Sea, spotted by the Dutch steamer Valentine, this time above the water in 1910. Reports like these have been extremely common all around our world's oceans throughout history, which sounds very similar to what's been seen around the Bermuda Triangle. Locals, tourists, and military alike have hundreds of reports of lights underwater, strange craft circling them, round objects rising and going beneath the surface. It's why the Bermuda Triangle is the Bermuda Triangle. Countless stories about unexplained disappearances, metallic objects, and lights seen in the ocean, which survivors of accidents in the triangle have very commonly reported on. In 1945, we have the now famous story of the 5 military bombers flying over the triangle on routine training. All 5 planes vanish without a trace. The Navy sends a rescue plane and that one disappears too, all never heard from again. And the US Navy is well aware of the activity in that area, that's for sure. Like, did you know the Navy kinda has their own bootleg version of Area 51 they call AUTEC, Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center, which is located in the Bahamas in the Bermuda Triangle. I wonder why. A secret facility where they test their own, mainly sea-based military technology. And the personnel working there have also reported the same bizarre observations in the area, with some noting crafts up to a mile in diameter coming out of and going back into the ocean without a visible splash. Almost like these objects aren't affected by matter, which sounds impossible, but also kind of makes sense when you think about how fast and erratically UFOs move. Some researchers suggest these UAPs may have vacuum force fields around them that manipulate matter, which allows them to move and interact with our world in ways that seem to defy physics. Kinda sounds like a warp drive to me. And these aren't just rumors, by the way. We have ex-Department of Defense officials like Luis Elizondo who openly talk about declassified operations from down there, which only prove exactly what everyone else was saying. One story involves a Navy helicopter pilot who recovers test missiles from the ocean and was en route to retrieve one from the area, who was approaching the missile when all of a sudden something huge and round slowly rose to the surface from deep beneath the water. They couldn't believe their eyes as a circular object the size of a small island becomes visible just below the ocean right under the missile they were going to retrieve. Panicked and unsure what to do, they watch in disbelief as the object sucks the missile down and then sinks back into the depths of the ocean as swiftly as it appeared. Elizondo also talks about the Aguadilla incident, a video of a UAP around Puerto Rico that he confirms enters the water without making a splash, comes back out, and then splits in two, which the Pentagon recently debunked for being just a temperature reading mistake, but you also have ex-military personnel insisting it's real. And these are just the declassified reports. He made it very obvious that there were many more incidents that he was not allowed to talk about that you could imagine would only get worse. So, what on earth is going on here? What are these gargantuan circular objects found in our oceans time and time again? Well, in April 2023, an an alleged government whistleblower came out and dropped just the biggest UFO bombshell of our lives that we've never heard of. It's a post from 4chan, so it's obviously 100% true, and if you don't agree, you're absolutely wrong. But it was incredibly detailed with very specific information, a lot of which was actually discussed in the recent UAP hearing, which happened 18 months after this post was made. Could this be the classified info that no one on the panel was allowed to talk about? The whistleblower starts by saying that UFOs are mostly unmanned drones and that they're built by underwater facilities at the bottom of our oceans. Yup. Alien bases on our ocean floor, and the one he was assigned to was in the Bermuda Triangle, which he claims the Navy believes has been there since 4000 BC. And the reason planes and boats disappear all the time is because the base vaporizes anything that gets too close to it, and then the entire base itself moves to a new location. That's portable underwater alien bases on our ocean floor. This one in particular stays within the Bermuda Triangle. The Navy is well aware of it, and at this point they just do everything to avoid it. OP claims that UAPs are all built to spec, each one constructed for a specific purpose, which is why we have different UFO types: pills, spheres, saucers, triangles, etc. They get manufactured, deployed, do their business around the world, and then come back into the ocean base to get recycled for parts, which could be why that massive one sucked in the test missile. It was just collecting parts. He says there's underwater bases like this all around the world, built to manufacture UFOs, but they're not run by aliens. At least not directly. These facilities and crafts are all operated entirely by AI. They've been here for thousands of years, which is why we see them in ancient cave drawings and even Renaissance paintings, along with the hundreds of other reports throughout the centuries. But they became especially interested in us when we started dropping nukes, assuming they realized we're now capable of destroying them and possibly even ourselves. And some fringe researchers even suggest there's a huge network of tunnels under our ocean floor that these bases connect to for quick transit around the globe. Maximilian de Lafayette claims there are exactly 12 of these bases around the world, in places like the Bermuda Triangle, Alaska, the Baltic Sea, probably one in the South China Sea. Retired Navy Admiral and oceanographer Tim Gallaudet insists there's an anomaly off the coast of Catalina Island in California that is definitely not natural, yet the military refuses to investigate. He himself suggests that it could be an entrance to some underwater facility, and the government is intentionally covering it up. Tim also talked about being chased while out at sea by underwater objects that move in irregular patterns and going faster than a torpedo, which is hundreds of kilometers an hour, with other former defense specialists claiming these USOs going faster than the speed of sound underwater, which is over 5,000 kilometers an hour. Reminder that most USO encounters are of course classified, which if they don't want to tell us can only get worse, and we're left wondering what's really down there. Congress recently passed the UAP Disclosure Act, a defense bill that is supposed to give we the people full transparency on government info about UAPs. Sounded promising, but then again, this is the government after all. If things are too good to be true, they probably are. The Pentagon actually amended the bill, literally stripping disclosure from a disclosure bill. What? Stating that they retain full control on what gets released and that they can hide anything about UAPs if it's a matter of national security, which is their way of saying the Department of Defense can redact, classify, and destroy any UAP evidence if they feel like it. We're left sitting here in the dark on what in the world is happening in our oceans. And it's almost like our government doesn't want to investigate any of this at all, because how can they investigate something that they don't want the world to know about?